Thanks for being here. Before we do our regular routine, Dorothy's to make a little announcement or appeal. Come on.
Yeah. So as you're aware, we do Zoom on Sabbath school coverage. So most of you probably hopefully participated at some point in time. If you've not been able to make it to church, you know that our Sabbath school class is due for those people. And sometimes we've got 3 or 4, and sometimes 10% of our class or more is participating via Zoom. Right now, there is 2 of us that are on the schedule operating the cameras and the Zoom process. So John Linkwitz and myself. Ideally, we would really like to have 4 people, but at the minimum 3, so that we can have somebody on the schedule to where it's once a month. There's just times when I'm going to be out of town and I joke John's going to be out of town. And if we could have a 3rd person or potentially a 4th that's willing to do this, it would take some pressure off. And yeah, it's a little bit of a responsibility. It's a little bit of a commitment. But if you're coming to Sabbath school anyway, and I'm, the same way, there's going to be weeks that I'm going to be here, but not always running the system. But it's nice to be able to share some of that responsibility. So Ken's done appeals before via email. I thought we'd try doing something a little bit different than I actually get to talk to you. It is a simple process, okay? I am not a computer guy. That's not what I do for a living. This is a fairly simple operation. If you know what windows are on a computer and not just the ones that you look outside, and what a mouse pad is, and not the sticky thing that your mouse gets caught on in the garage, if you know how to deal with those things just a little bit, we've got a very detailed instruction list, more than happy to go over it with somebody. So just think about that. If that's something that you go, you know what, I can do that. I can use a keyboard, I can use the mouse, I can follow instructions, I can get to Sabbath school 20 minutes early to get it up and rolling. Then, think about that. If that's something that you think you can do, either talk to me after class. If you want to think about it, I put my phone number up here and you can text me. So if you're going, okay, well, let me at least kind of, mull it over a little bit. Text me sometime. I don't usually give out my phone number because honestly, I think cell phones are just Satan's tool of torment. So I really don't like that. So this is a select few, which I'm giving out my cell phone number to. So you can text me if you've got questions. I'll be happy to meet with somebody if they say, you know what, I'll give it a shot one week and you do it. And I walk you through it and you go, okay, this is pushing my blood pressure up too much. I can't do it any longer. That's fine. But anyway, that's my appeal, is if there's somebody that's interested or willing to help with that. So we can get a 3rd or potentially 4th person on rotation, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Dorothy has really taken on a load the last few months. And I hate to say this, but this class is sort of becoming a production, which was not in the plan, with chairs, the internet, and people zooming in and zooming out. So if you could think about doing that once in a while, it would really help. It isn't that difficult. I did it a few times, and it would be meaningful if this was something that you could consider. Very meaningful. March.
We have some visitors here today.
Yes.
And visiting from, I don't know what church he goes to, but anyway, he lives on McDonald Road. Name is Hoffman Steen.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're glad he's here. These folks are visiting here from Florida, Avon Park. And we're so glad that they are here.
Yeah.
Give me your name again.
Norm.
Norman and Lita. They don't want you to know their last name.
Yeah.
And see, wasn't there someone else? Oh, yes, you've got a relative that you're claiming here.
That's good.
Go ahead.
Oh, Esther and Richard Cannonberg from
Betty.
Betty.
What?
Betty and Richard Cannonberg.
Was that your first wife that you gave?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, has he ever moved? From Chico, California.
Yeah.
That's okay, sweetie.
It's from California.
That's all right.
Wait till it.
Yeah.
if you're from California, I'm sure Mark knows you, knows your parents, or knows somebody.
We lived in Paradise for 30 years, which is about 15 miles from Chico. Why would we know them?
Why not? I wanted to do something that I always forget to do, and I get home and I say, why did you know it? We have a prayer list. And there's certain people we tell you about, then we just sort of fall off the mouth with you. But I've been to see Paul Musgraves a few times, and Paul seems to be in good spirits. He was a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago. Enjoyed meeting with him, and Ruth Fish had surgery Thursday, I believe. I don't know how that's going. Do you go on?
It was a difficult surgery. She was supposed to come home today, but she's, well, probably for a few more days.
Ken, what about Jerry up here? Has anybody kept in touch?
I
with
saw him in church last week. He has been enlightened and probably went to a different class.
Oh, okay. I haven't even seen him, so he
Oh,
is.
Rod, how's he doing?
He's doing great. He's gotten enlightened as much with the class.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just am glad he's doing better. That's wonderful.
The other rest of the folks, you don't know, they're friends of mine that I have neglected, and they're close to me. So I got to get my act together this week and check on my friends. It happened to me this week that we see things, but we don't see. We see you, but we don't see. There's a fellow I know that has had some very serious back problems, other problems. So I've had so many back surgeries, believe it or not. I know who the good surgeons are, who my surgeons are that work. They worked for a while. And I've been doing business with this man for over nearly 25 years. Nice guy. He has a men's shop downtown. And serious back problems. And while they're fixing his back last week, they discover something very serious. Kind of shocked us all. So he's on my list. You don't know him. I don't want to discuss his issues. But I bought so many clothes from him through the years, and I always come home, rip open the box, throw it in the trash. This has been on his every garment for the last 25 years, and with my regular schedule, naturally, I don't see it. It's the Lord's Prayer here. I'm 23. And this is on the other side. The cloth used in the tailoring of fine clothing is vitally important to us here at the store. This is one reason we chose the symbol of a lamb to represent our company. The lamb and its wool serve as a reminder to each customer that we are committed to selling only the highest quality of clothing, both in material and workshop. The primary reason we chose the symbol of the lamb is because of our commitment to Jesus Christ. In the Bible, it is pictured as the good shepherd, and we as his sheep. He provides all that his people need. He leads throughout our lives. He restores our soul through his provisions of forgiveness and peace. He promised us never to leave us or forsake us. This is God's nature, and this is his character. And because of his love and goodness to us all, it is to him that this store is dedicated. 25 years, I finally see that. Gotta get some help. I want to thank our folks that zoomed in today. Thank you for doing this. You're very vital to our class. And so if you have a comment, please do your thing there and let Garth know and we'll stop. Lost it there. I had something I wanted to share with you. But thank you for zooming in. And with that said, John, would you have our prayer?
Father, thank you for bringing us all together again this morning. Be with Ken as he moderates and leads our discussion. Help us better understand your word and appreciate why we are here, why you have given us the opportunity to live life, and help us live it through you. We ask in your name, amen.
Thank you, John. By the way, please stand up. This is one of the students that I've been visiting with. I've been visiting with for the past month. We met 3 times now. They still are not discouraged after seeing me. So, again, hopefully during the summer, you're leaving though for somewhere in Oregon or,
Kansas City.
yeah, and you're gonna be doing what now?
I'm gonna be in a hospital administration with United Health.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ken. We're glad you're here. I'm gonna ask a lot of questions. I think there was supposed to be 10 this week. There came 8 of them, 2 of them were sick the last minute. And I remember one of the questions they asked me early on is, and I did the same thing. Come on up, Carrie. We'll embarrass you. Don't worry about it.
Wouldn't be the first.
This man sees so much every week that you can't embarrass. You know those big trucks you see on the interstate that tell you to move over, slow down, the arrows? You do know what an interstate is. He's in charge of some of the vehicles that tell you to get over, slow down, wreck ahead. Every time I see his truck, I know I'm gonna be late. I was asked, I wanted to say, what is your passion? Which would have been one of the questions I would have asked in my 20s. They were expecting me to talk about buildings and development and this. And I said, my passion is gardening. They were like, what? Gardening. What I do as a developer enables me to have a nice garden. I've lost my passion for being under pressure. I'm just hanging on for 2 more years. So anyhow, it's interesting how young people are going to take over our country, and some of them are, I'm very encouraged with, very encouraged. The other thing I want to ask you to do is please speak up today. You're a teacher today, and it's no secret, I'm going deaf. And there's other people in the room that really need you to speak up. So put your big boy pants on, raise your hand if you have a comment, make your comment brief. We have a lot of people, but we want to hear from all of you. Okay, I think that's it. Today's lesson is about a wedding banquet, a wedding party, a wedding get together. If you could choose a way to redo your wedding, what would you choose if you were going to redo the whole show? Would you recite your vows while parachuting? Hold the service underwater? Dress everyone in a costume? Any comments? Yes.
Different room.
Some of you might say, don't do it. Yeah, go ahead. Is that, you have a comment?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. Different room. This is about a party today. Thomas Jefferson's dinner parties were a thing to behold. He was known for his dinner parties and people around Washington longed to be on the guest list. He had discovered different foods while ambassador to France between 1785 and 89. He found macaroni from Italy, which he'd never tasted, anchovies, which I have never tasted, olive oil, vanilla, citron, and Parmesan cheese, and ice cream, which was a sensation to the people of Washington. We already had ice cream in 1785 in France. He even had a servant trained by a famous French chef. He went overboard on it, and people longed to be on his guest list. Ever planned a party? And some guests you really wanted to be there didn't show up? I have. There's one couple, I throw a party every June for my business associates at my house on the path. And there's a couple of bankers I would really like to be there who become friends, but it's, well, we'll be at a wedding. This is June, you know, but we'll be at the beach, it's June, you know. But they're out of town for some other reason. So I began to think, you know what? It's not going to invite you. Well, I back off because I like them so much. I want them to be at my party. I really do. I want to recap the past few weeks where we've been. It's Tuesday in biblical times. It's April the 4th, and Jesus will die on Friday. So we're only a couple of days away. And on Monday, the day before Tuesday, Jesus has just cleansed the temple for the second time. So now on Tuesday, the chief priests show up, still upset about this temple business, and ask him, who has given you the authority to do such a thing in our temple? So Jesus replies with a question from that question. It says, well, I'll tell you what, if you answer this question, I'll tell you how I get my authority. And I do these. And the question to you, Pharisee and Mr. Chief Priest, is John's baptism, where did it come from? Was it from heaven or from men? So the chief priests have suddenly walked into a trap. They call time out. They want to chat about this. When they get together and they say, well, if it comes from heaven, then Jesus will ask them, well, why don't you believe me? And if we say it comes from men, the people loved John the Baptist. They thought it was a prophet. They'll stone us. So they come back and they say, well, we don't know. We're not sure. We can't answer that question. So they take the fifth. They plead the fifth. We don't know. We're not going to tell you. Then Jesus tells them, well, neither will I tell you by what authority I'm doing these things. A seasoned debater, a shrewd debater, will sometimes answer a question with a question. This happened a few years ago. I was really upset about the direction of Chattanooga and the way it was heading under the current administration at that time. It was really going downhill. And so I called a prominent citizen. I'll never forget, it was on the 4th of July, and I was upset with this whole thing about Chattanooga. My wife was out of town. So I decided on 4th of July, I will go down and visit my parents because my family's somewhere. And I said on the way down to Calhoun, I will call this person. He won't answer the phone, but I'll leave a message and I'll get better. He's a big time player. Not that I am, but I'm just fortunate to know this guy. And so I call him on the 4th of July and he actually answered. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, what's on your mind? I said, well, I hate to bother you because it's a holiday. And I said, no, they're all outside escaping. So I asked him, I said, how do you think the direction of the city's going? And being a very bright guy, he says, how do you feel the direction of the city's going? So if you really want to get the conversation really turned up, you answer the question with a question. Of course, I am loaded. And I think it's 45 minutes from Collegedale to Calhoun. So most of that 45 minutes I was ranting and raving. Good Christian. So debating, answering questions. But then Jesus jumps right into a new conversation with him. He tells them a parable of a man who had 2 sons. He asked the first son to go work in the vineyard, and the son says, I'm not going. But he changes his mind later, and he does go with him. The father goes to the second son to work in the vineyard, and he said, yeah, I'll do it. But he never showed up. So Jesus asked the chief priests and the Pharisees, which of the 2 sons did what the father wanted? The first, they answered. Then Jesus tells them that tax collectors and prostitutes are entering the kingdom ahead of them. And Jesus tells them that John came to show them the path to righteousness, and you didn't believe him, but the tax collectors and the prostitutes did, and they will enter heaven in front of you. Didn't even believe John the Baptist. Then he quickly jumps into another parable. It's about a landlord who planted a vineyard. He built a wall around it and dug a wine press, built a watchtower. And when harvest time came, he sent his servants to the tenants to collect his rent for part of the harvest. And the tenants seized his servants and they beat one, then they killed another one, and they stoned the third. Then he sent more servants, more than the first time, and they were treated the same. Last, he sent his son. thinking they will respect my son. But the tenant says, this is the heir, this is the prince. So let's kill him and we'll get the inheritance and take over the kingdom. So they threw the son out of the vineyard and they killed him. So when the owner comes, he will bring those wretched people to an end. He says he will rent his vineyard to other tenants who will give him his share of the harvest. What question? Who do these characters in this story represent? And this isn't critical, but I just found it. I taught this lesson about 4 years ago, and it was very interesting. Who is the landlord in this story? God. What does the vineyard represent? Israel, the people. And who are the farmers, the tenants? Who do they represent? Pharisees. The watchtower, I thought this one. Any idea what the watchtower represented? The temple. Gave them all these things. Who were the servants that he sent? Who were those? Prophets. And who were the other tenants that he is going to give this land to
Gentiles.
Gentiles? Had enough. We'll try a new group. And the chief priests and the Pharisees knew he was talking about them. And they looked for a way to arrest him, but they were afraid of the crowd again. Let's turn to our lesson today. Matthew 22, 1 through 12. And if you're in the harmony, go to page 158 in this little book. 158. And you'll see down to, it's a little confusing. We're sorry about this author, but you'll see down at the bottom of the page, verse 1. Yeah, it's down at the very bottom. Thank you, Gordon. The other Gordon.
Yes.
Relax. So let's go back to what we used to do before COVID. We used to read it out loud in the class, but COVID killed that. So I'm going to revive it today. So will someone start with verse 1 and we're going to go through verse 12. Just pick out, anybody just start and read a verse or two and don't hesitate. Read.
Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come.
Then he sent some more servants and said, tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.
But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business, and the rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them.
The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city.
Then said he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, as many as ye shall find, bid them to the marriage.
So the servants went out into the street and gathered all the people they could find, both good and bad, and the wedding hall was filled with guests.
But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. Friend, he asked, how did you get in here without wedding clothes? The man was speechless.
Then the king told the attendants, tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen.
I'll read 12. Then they looked for a way to arrest him because they knew he had spoken the parable against them. But they were afraid of the crowd, and So they left and went away. So Jesus has already told two stories. He's not backing down. He goes right into this parable, the third one. And the first two parables have already caused the chief priests and the Pharisees to hate him even more. Before we go any further, there's something you need to understand about this parable, which I love. This is not about anything but the king. This is his parable. Nathan went to David about the little lamb and how the rich guy took the little lamb and it was the only little lamb he had. And one reason he went in with a parable, as we've learned through parables, this can diffuse a possible reaction. You go in and say, hey, you killed a man and you stole his wife. You know, David was a hot tempered. He used this parable. He was a man, but we don't get into that here. This is about the king. This is all about God. This is his story. We need to look at it through his eyes. Verse 2 shows us that the kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a banquet for his son, a wedding banquet. I think what I've learned about this is this father is really excited. This king is really fired up about this wedding and the banquet, and he's ecstatic about the possible joy, friendship, devotion, and commitment that can take place at this party. He's allowed his son to become human so that he can be united with the bride, with the people. It was to be an incredible event. The father and son are really cranked up about this marriage. It's to be the party of a life. Jesus, his only son, is about to get married. Verse 3, it said, he sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come. They refused to come. Who were the ones that had been previously invited? Notice the word previously. Who do you think that is?
Israel?
I'm sorry?
Is it Israel?
Yep. They've been invited over and over again. And who were the servants that were sent? Prophets. The Old Testament prophets. Even John the Baptist, Jesus' disciples, and Jesus himself and his teaching and his miracle was the invitation. The time was now. The long looked for event was here. All that was needed was to just take the invitation to the wedding. The chosen Jewish out of all the nations of the world were to attend this wedding. They were chosen. If they refused the invitation, and this was a big insult to the king, give a little more on these servants that went, how they treated them, Israel treated them. Isaiah said to them from Jerusalem, suffered martyrdom by being sawn in two, cut in half. Jeremiah killed by stoning. Ezekiel martyred, and Ezekiel was from the priesthood. Micah was martyred. Amos was tortured and killed by Amaziah the priest. But it just gets worse. This is Zechariah, said to be from Jerusalem, was killed by King Joash. Now that was Zechariah. Now Zechariah with an A is said to have been murdered between the temple and the altar. Jesus talks about this in Matthew 23. So these guys haven't exactly had a big reception. They haven't exactly had the doormat, the welcome mat thrown at them. As a matter of fact, Obadiah, remember Ahab and Jezebel, Obadiah was chief of staff for Ahab. Tell you how shrewd he was. He had to hide 100 prophets, messengers, the king, give them food and water until Ahab and Jezebel moved on. Of course, then you have the beheading of John the Baptist. Verse 4 says that Then he sent more servants and said, tell those who have been invited that I prepared my dinner, my oxen and fatted cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Please come to the wedding banquet. They paid no attention and went off, in verse 6. One went to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants and mistreated them and killed them. The king was enraged. So he sent his army and destroyed their city. And this refers to AD 70, when the Romans came and sacked the city. The king was enraged. They read you verse 8 and 9. Then he said to his servants, the wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited don't deserve to come. Go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find. What do you think this passage means? Where are we going with this passage? It's a discussion class. Don't be bashful. Who is he referring to now? Right there.
To the Gentiles.
Yes. This is a universal proclamation. Go and give the Gentiles the invitations. My first guests refused to accept. They were my chosen people. But the first group obviously is not going to cut the mustard. They really don't care for it. It's obvious. So they don't care about my party. It's not good enough for it, or it's too boring for it. So let's go find some more people that might come to my party. Verse 10. So the servants went out to the streets and gathered all the people they could find, both good and bad. Please notice bad, good and bad. And the wedding hall was filled with wedding hall was filled with guests. The church is finally assembled, good and bad, sheep and goats, wheat and the tares. Do you think today there are bad people in the church?
Yeah.
Good. I would say there is. Yes.
It's interesting to me, it kind of, something just hit me here a minute, verse 5 and verse 6. There was the whole group that rejected this invitation.
Yeah.
The vast majority of them were just too busy, they were just whatever. There was only a few people who were, actively, vehemently, violently opposed. The rest of them were just, I'm busy.
Shoot. Just, how should I say it? They're not engaged. They're just going along to get along. It's what I'm picturing in my mind. Do you think there are bad people in the Collegedale Community Church? Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, we just hope we're not one of them.
Yeah. Oh. What it says, the good and the bad. They got the letter.
What do you mean by bad?
Hmm?
What do you mean by bad? Do you mean people that need the Lord, or what do you mean by
I'm
bad?
just a typical teacher here. I don't really know much.
But you made that statement 2 or 3 times.
You ever had a bad kid? You wonder what the heck is going on with this kid, or a bad friend, why are you doing it? But he's still going to be invited to my party. She's going to be invited.
Because there's good in them.
There is good.
So the bad people also have good in them.
I believe so. And I'm
I mean,
going to get into that. Yes.
It seems to
Finally,
me,
I don't want to say the hand of a bad person. Go ahead.
it seems to me that bad people that he's talking about are those that, even though they're bad, will be receptive to Christ.
Amen.
He was hoping. Why do you send, if you're going to have a party and you send somebody an invitation, I guess you're hoping they might show up. Yes.
Matthew, the tax collector, Mary Magdalene, the prostitute, those were the bad people. And they were being invited because he's inviting them to repent.
Yeah. Bad people. Bad people. During the party. They get the invitation. And I'm sure some of the good people are arriving and thinking, how in the world did they get it? If I had known, I probably would have not. When the king came in to see the guests, let's read verse 11. This is a big deal. When the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. Please note that the king had to see the guests before the party started. He wants to see everybody that's there before we kick this thing off. Don't crank up the band yet. Hold the music. Don't bring the caterers in yet. I want to check this crowd out. The king is in charge. He already been very upset with the first one. Why do you think this man showed up without his wedding garment? What goes through your mind? When you were there, you're kind of an oddball. Why did you even show up? Just because he got an invitation? Yes.
I think he's the guy who wants the goodies without the commitment.
I think you're on something. Why would you come in without your? Maybe he had a suit that he just purchased. He didn't want to wear that instead. He thought it would be better. So his clothes were good enough like they would. And maybe he said, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I know the king said this, but I'll wear my favorite clothes. Whatever it is, his heart wasn't in it. Yeah, Ken.
I have heard before that the wedding garment was actually supplied by the king
It was.
when they came.
Yes.
And so if this guy has to have, he refused to put it on. He didn't want to take on what God was giving to him.
Yeah. I've had parties and I want everybody to have a night. I throw big parties. We have lunches, but once a year or 2 years, I throw a big party. You have to wear a name tag or I get upset because I can't remember names anymore. If you don't have a name tag, I'm like, why are you doing it? What, don't you want to meet the other guests? These are my friends. A name tag is a real icebreaker. Oh, Bill, good to see you. I've never seen you before in my life. Man, it's good to meet you. I'm glad you came. Or it's like riding an elevator. Some of our elevators are glass all the way to the top of the building. I get on those elevators like at the Westin. People are looking around and talking and they're pointing. And I get on elevators at other buildings where you're in this casket that goes up and down. And they're like this. John Portman, one of the most famous architects of modern times, designed those elevators to run outside the framing. They're not in the framing, they're outside of it. So you can see what's going on. And he said, I've been criticized for the elevators that I have designed in the past. Would you rather stand in an elevator for 18 floors with your head down? Or would you rather be smiling at somebody? Makes sense. It just costs more to build.
Sometimes people wear outrageous clothes because they just want to be provocative.
Yeah.
Met Gala, was held, there's a dress code that everyone understands, wear something really classy, wear something very, very nice, very elegant. We're not gonna describe any more than that, but then some joker comes in a bunny costume.
Yeah.
Well, I can see the king, these are culturally determined kinds of topics, but for them, wearing something that was appropriate for the event. And he saw someone who was just making a mockery of that, like this fellow who said, I'm gonna just show up in a big, huge bunny costume.
Yeah.
Well, I could see how that could offend the hosts.
Look, if you spend 10 or 12,000 years getting ready for this party, it's all planned out. It's been planned for millennium. and you've got some character coming in with Bozo the Clown stuff on. Like, this is my son, you know, it's the only son I have. I let him become a human for you. He agreed to this. This was our idea, but he agreed to it. So we can have this party. And you've been sold. Take Bozo with you. You know? Yes, sir.
They, the king asked his guests 3 different times to come to the banquet. 3 times he tried. There was a real effort and they still didn't come. So then he says, well, go fleece everybody else up, the good and the bad. And he's not gonna have the party tomorrow, it's today. The time's at hand. So you show up today and you didn't have the right clothes. Let's call it the cloak of righteousness. Let's say, let's call it something else besides clothes. And you don't have it on. And yeah, it's good to try to understand what bad and what good is, but this is the time. It's now. Judgment is now, and you're gonna land on one side or the other. And so he's thrown out. Same thing that we will all face. Yeah, right now, we're kind of in training. I get it, if you're bad now, bring it around, you can do it, you know, but there's gonna be a time where a line is drawn in the sand. And this is what that wedding represents, it's now. And it's not on your timing, by the way, it's on the king's time.
I think I told you about the homeless situation when Ken Shaw, the president of the university, had an inaugural party or something at the Westin downtown. And so I'm kind of in charge. That's our hotel. And people are arriving, and when I told you about the homeless guy, all he had on was a swimsuit.
Oh.
Right? And he lays down, and when the guests, I mean, this was supposed to be a big party for the new president. When the cars arrive and the valets are getting you out of the car, he lays down on the sidewalk and starts rolling around with no shirt on. Then he gets up and starts screaming and jumping. And then he gets up and goes pees on the Westin. I would have not allowed him into the banquet. Sorry. I might have allowed you in with a swimsuit on till you paid on my hotel. But you're not welcome. This has been well planned. I would have gotten him a spare blazer in the closet at the hotel. And he could have worn a blazer maybe if he'd have acted right. And some shoes. He didn't have shoes on. But there comes a time when enough is enough. And I think that's where we're headed here. Yes.
So I want to read to you, Zechariah, where the garment was from.
Yeah.
So Zechariah chapter 3, verse 3 says, now Joshua, and Joshua at the time was the priest. Joshua was dressed in filthy clothes as he stood before the angel. The angel said to those who were standing before him, take off those filthy clothes. Then he said to Joshua, see, I have taken away your sin, and I will put fine garments on you. Then I said, put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him, while the angel of the Lord stood by. So I want you to think of coming into this wedding feast. And as you walk into the wedding feast, there's somebody there who is willing to take away your filth, your sin, the badness, whatever it is. And he wants to give you his own clothing, his character. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Is replacing our spots with his purity and cleanness.
Thank you.
And I want to take this back to last week's lesson too, because it's not just that. It's the fact that Joshua didn't take off his own clothes.
Yeah.
God took them off. God replayed them. So if this man was in a wedding feast without a garment, it's because he turned God down. He
Right.
turned that process down to allow God to make him ready
Thank you for your comment.
Just
Thank you.
sit at the feet.
This, I think, well, right on the money. But please know, the king is still in charge. And then on verse 12, it says, friend, how did he get in here with those clothes? Without way. There's no comment. Yes.
I hope I don't derail you, that she would say,
That was a
can
good
you
comment.
hear okay? Am I speaking up? Dr. Williams at like the women's retreat a few years ago was preaching on this. And she brought up the fact that no one else in where the feast was, noticed the man's clothes. Only the king and only God knew the true.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I know where you're going. He looked good.
He looked good, but no one else could judge him, but only God could judge him.
We were talking about who the bad guys were. To me, that's in the church. Pastor Jerry every week asks us to give our heart and recommit. And if you refuse to, that doesn't mean you didn't mess up that week, but if you refuse to stand and you keep turning that down, I think that's our bad guys or bad gals. Either way.
Right, yeah. That's true. The invitation comes every Saturday morning. Now 3 times, I think there's 3 services, 10 o'clock service back.
August.
So in verse 13, the king has his tied hand and foot. It's thrown out into the darkness. What does this parable teach us about God's mercy? Yes. What does it teach us about God's mercy?
That's a fun.
What does it teach us about God's justice? It is coming. Yeah,
I think it's like God has justice and he has mercy, but there's also consequences.
every time. Every time. Yes.
His mercy is unbound, and ending for those who will accept it. The mercy is not given to those who refuse, not because it's not there, but because they don't want it. So the only time judgment comes is when you refuse the mercy.
Yeah. Justice.
The sacrificial service ended pretty much, well, shortly after Christ died. They kept trying, that the veil was open and there was an end. There's an end to God saying, you can do what you want, but there is an end coming. That's the end.
Yeah. You keep turning down my invitation.
His mercy is going to end and judgment is going to happen.
Yeah. Really, you're saying you just don't want to come forward. I keep inviting you. Yes.
I think God wants to come back so much because like you said, he wants the friendship, he wants the camaraderie, he wants to get to know us personally, and that's to get to know him personally. So he's got to cut off. He's got to have like, okay, I'm coming at this time. You don't know when I'm coming, but I'm coming here. And before that, close of probation is over. If you didn't choose, you didn't choose. But it was your choice, not mine, because I want everyone to be here.
Yeah. The invitations keep coming in the mail. What character or characters do you relate to in this story? The servant? Think about it now. Who do you relate to in the story? The servant who keeps getting turned down and criticized for offering the invitation? Who played that role? The king who keeps inviting his loved ones to the banquet at no takers? The son who's already to have a relationship but keeps getting spurned by his bride and left at the altar? person who repairs, refuses to wear wedding clothes? Can you relate to that? Or the people who simply do not want to be at the banquet, who do you relate to? I mean, this is a story to help you this morning. It's been around a couple of thousand years. Yes.
Do you think there were any people there who came, accepted the invitation, and then later regretted it, changed their mind?
Yes. And to be honest with you, I have been all these people, all these characters in a way. What do you think about it? All of them. I have never wanted to go. There was times, most of my life, I did not want to go to the banquet. I have been all these people. I've been too busy most of my life to go to the banquet, and I left it for my business. I left the invitation on my desk. And what about my business? I have resented the servants who brought me the invitation for most of my life. I have ridiculed the people who accepted the invitation for most of my life. I have felt very superior to those who wanted to go to the banquet for most of my life. Like a bunch of these characters. I thought most Adventists were complete idiots and stated so publicly many times. You want to talk to me about Adventism? Fine, I'm leaving the room. I'm not accepting your invitation. You are beneath me. I'm bitter toward you. I don't really like you, but you can leave that invitation in the car. I ain't going. I will not accept it. It's not part. I'm too busy for this kind of mentality. Do you keep hanging around for an invitation that resonates with you? Did a servant finally come to you with an invitation that was actually from God and not from the church? I did. I got an invitation, not from the corporate church, but from a prophet, sort of. A real live human being that understood what the invitation should have written on it. It wasn't printed and rolled out 10,000 copies at a time. Somebody came to me with an invitation. And I read the invitation and I understood it, or began to understand. I remember when I was younger, and at the end of the services, there would be an altar call. That's what we call it in the other churches. Altar call. And every week the choir would be singing, "Just as I am, O Lord, just as I am." And I would well up inside and get kind of gushy. And the appeal was very moving, but I would not accept the invitation. Do you remember who that servant was that brought you the true invitation from the king? Remember who it was? Remember that day that you decided, I'm going to accept this invitation? Anybody? Am I the only guy here that tried to accept it? You remember who that person was that finally got to you? So Ken, I love you, but listen to me. God, you've gotten off track here, buddy. You've come off the rails. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. It's like, oh, those people over there, they'll never change. They've been doing this every Saturday morning. They won't change. They're not. Ken, Jesus was a good Jewish boy. He went to church every Saturday morning of his life. And consider what he had to put up with. I am sure you will find a way to work through this. And that resonated. That invitation makes sense. And so I accepted the next invitation for the following. And the invitation got clearer. It began to be easier to understand. I was 50 years old when I was baptized. Now, that's a long time to dodge the party. No, or to dodge the invitation. 50 years. Most of you were baptized at 12. But I couldn't do that because I didn't understand really what was happening. I'm not against early baptism. I'm just telling you, I couldn't accept the invitation. Too busy. I didn't want to put on any wedding clothes. I just wanted you to leave me alone. Let me live my life. So at 50 years old, I decide I'll go to the bank. What have I got to lose? I'm confused, I'm discouraged, I'm unhappy. I'm under pressure. What in the world have I got to lose? I've hit bottom here emotionally. You see, this invitation was about honesty. When I bombarded this question, this servant, when I bombarded the servant with all these questions that I had rehearsed in my mind, to take him down, the persecuting. He answered me honestly. I said, well, this church, they teach this and this and this. What do you think about that? He said, I don't believe it. What? What? It's not biblical. I don't believe that. But you are a minister. It doesn't matter. I belong to this church, but I don't have to believe everything that someone says. Unless it's from the Bible, I don't believe. Really? He said, you misread the invitation again. You didn't really read it correctly. This invitation is for everyone. You need to kind of be thinking in that direction. Yeah, the church has its faults. Where are you going to go? Take my invitation from the king and meet me in church. And we'll do this together. You get discouraged, I'll try to answer what you don't understand of the invitation. We'll look at through it. And we did. You'd have told me 23 years ago that I would be standing here in this room full of people. I would never believe it. See, I got the right invitation from the right prophet, from the right servant, from the right guy. I believe that God keeps inviting us because he feels we might not really understand him. So he's going to keep sending them. These are my children. I don't think they understand the invitation. So send them another one. Send another servant. Send somebody else. Well, we're out of time. Any comments? Any thoughts? I'm still learning. Keith.
We haven't dealt heavily with the servants themselves.
Sorry, have one.
We haven't dealt with servants.
No, we haven't.
The servants, some of them have been out there killed. The king is still sending more out. So they have had to grapple with what their future might be if they follow the king's edicts.
Yeah, it's tough to be a servant sometimes. John.
Yeah, I too have been, you get invited to parties and you just don't want to go. You just don't want to go. But you go, and invariably, a lot of times when you're driving home, you're saying to yourself, I didn't want to go, but I'm sure glad I went. You know, I'm glad I did it. And then you ask yourself, well, why did I like it? Why am I glad I did it? And normally for me, it's because of the people that I was around. Because I so much appreciated the people that were there, and I got to know some wonderful people even better. And so I think that, and so I grew because of that. I'm better because I did it, and at least I'm trying. At least I make an effort. If I say I'm not going, that means I'm not willing to make the effort. I'm not trying. And as soon as you stop trying, that's the problem. That's a problem.
It is. I'll leave you with this. I believe that God keeps inviting us because he feels we might not really understand the invitation. But does this give you courage regarding your loved ones that reject the invitation? Week after week. Your children, your grandchildren, your brother, your sister, your loved ones. You get discouraged. Not in church, they don't care anything about religion, they don't care anything about a spiritual. But yet I'm reading here that the invitation is going to keep coming. The king is in charge of the banquet, not me. The king is gonna keep sending those servants. I would hope somehow through all my faults that I could be a decent servant. And I'm not a good servant, but I keep trying every week to become a better servant. So that you'll keep coming back and you're just a little better off when you leave than you walked in. I believe Jerry Arnold is on his knees every week praying that you'll read the invitation. Why else would he have you stand up at the end of the service? Week after week. He really believes this stuff. He really believes there's going to be a banquet. And now he's on a judgment kick. He believes that, and he's worried about it. He really is. He's a good man. And he has been a servant that has been ridiculed, beat up, tried to be stoned a few times, but he survived. He's going to make it. If you knew what Jerry Arnold had to put up, which he wouldn't even want me to be telling you this. He shares some stuff with me that are diabolical. As a servant, he's had to endure it. But he survives. He will be at the banquet. So I hope this resonates a little bit with you. As maybe we can all be at the banquet. I'd like to see us all there and our loved ones and our kids. I really would. Even Gordon. I want to see Gordon. And he's not, anyone wants to be on our email list and get our lesson every week, see me after class. I'll get you signed up. Gordon, with that, why don't you have a prayer, buddy?
Lord, we thank you so much for this story that Jesus gave us. And our thoughts about it as we look into it, we think about it, we open our hearts to the Holy Spirit. And we ask that you will help us be ready to go for the invitation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
My husband.